At the heart of the Christian faith is the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ.
I think the universal question that anybody would ask, Christian or non-Christian, is, did Jesus rise from the dead? This is the greatest and earliest claim of Christianity. The evidence of the resurrection is circumstantial, but it's so strong because of the personality transformation of the apostles, because of the shift in worship from Saturday to Sunday, and because of a dozen other reasons that you often hear preached in an Easter sermon. There are two phenomena that happen on Easter Sunday. One, Christians believe Jesus rose from the dead. Secondly, the tomb must have been empty as a result. Now, we often overlook the empty tomb, but I think the empty tomb is very important because that is something that an ancient historian can get at.
They took Jesus' body down and they buried him in a tomb, the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea. The Gospels then report that Pilate placed a seal on the tomb. That could not be broken except for penalty of your own life. You would lose your head over it. And then, of course, this is further compounded by the fact of the guards being at the tomb. Early on Sunday morning, Mary Magdalene and some other women went to the tomb in order to complete the anointing of Jesus' body with spices. When they got there, they found that the tomb was empty. And they talked to an angel that was there that announced to them what had happened. Go back and tell his disciples, the angel said, that Jesus has risen.
Well, that's a very poor story if you're going to make this thing up, because there is a relationship between, with women in the first century Mediterranean world. The more important the issue, the general rule is, the more important the issue, the less you use women to testify.
So they run back and they tell the disciples what had happened. It's interesting to note that the disciples didn't believe them.
And their words seemed to them as idle tales, and they believed them not.
Then the record reports that Jesus appeared to Peter, and then later on he appeared to the 12 as a group. And then we find that probably in Galilee he appeared to more than 500 at one time.
The source on this last point is the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 15, where he is quoting an early creed that was circulating widely as part of an oral tradition.
In this early creed in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, it mentions an appearance to more than 500 to whom Jesus appeared to at one time. This is a group appearance. Now Paul adds a parenthetical statement. He says, most of whom are still alive, but some have died. Now what Paul is saying by that is that most of these people who saw Jesus in this large group appearance are still around. Hey, you can cross-examine them.
Finally, consider the case of one of the 12 who was not there the first time Jesus appeared to them, Thomas.
And then about a week later, Jesus appears before the whole group again, this time with Thomas. And he invites Thomas to touch him and to see him and recognize that he is the risen Lord of life. Thomas responded. He falls down and he says, "My Lord and my God." He called Jesus God as a result of seeing the risen Jesus. It's very interesting to note that Jesus does not correct him on this affirmation here.
Myths do not make martyrs. And if this story had been invented, they would not have gone to death for it. If Peter had invented the account, as he's ready to be hoisted up on a cross in Rome, he would have blown a whistle and said, "Hold it. I'll plea bargain with you. I'll tell you how we did it if I can come off with my life, if this thing had been synthesized." But he and the other apostles, except for John, met martyrs' deaths. Myths do not make martyrs.
Why did all those early Christians come to believe so definitely that Jesus really was raised from the dead? And that's the critical thing. And it seems to me that historically the only explanation is that the tomb was empty and that they saw him and conversed with him, and that is where the historian has to end up.